Hello, Zoomers and Facebookers. Welcome to our Virtuals Doctors Night Out, and I would like to introduce our host, Dr. Kellyann.
Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Kellyann here for another episode of Doctors Night Out. I'm so happy to be here this evening with you. As you know, the doctors we have on this program, they have a very different perspective. This is not what you see along the media or on normal copy throughout searching the web. These are doctors with really different perspectives, many of whom I've broken bread with. They are your true truth seekers. And today, I'm really pleased to have my girl on today, Dr. Rani Banik. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hi everyone.
So here's what's interesting. I love what she talks about. We were just saying this before the show. She's a neuro-ophthalmologist. That means it's someone who treats the brain and brain issues that affects the eyes. And it's really, what you're going to learn about this evening, you're going to love. If you are someone that suffers from migraines, or you know someone that suffers from migraines, you're going to get a really interesting perspective. If you suffer from allergies or you know someone who suffers from allergies, this is content you're going to want to know about. And here's the biggie. If you are on any electronics at all, if you look at a screen of any kind, you're going to want to know what we are talking about tonight. So let's get rolling. So Dr. Banik, here's a question. So can you give our listeners an idea of what kind of problems you treat? Because this whole concept of neuro-ophthalmology is very different for people to understand. We know that there's a connection between eye health and brain health. So explain this to us.
Yeah, I get this question all the time. You know, what is a neuro-ophthalmologist? I never heard of a neuro-ophthalmologist. So let me give you the breakdown. So first of all, I am an ophthalmologist. So I have training in ophthalmology. I did a residency in ophthalmology. So I take care of all the usual eye disorders like dry eye and cataracts and glaucoma and macular degeneration. But then I did a fellowship in neuro-ophthalmology. And what that is basically it merges the two fields of neurology and ophthalmology. And there are many connections between the brain and our eyes, our visual system, how we see, how we take in all the information we see, how we process what we see. And then also there are nerves that go from the brain back to our eyes that help regulate how we move our eyes, how we move our eyelids, how we move our face. So neuro-ophthalmology actually encompasses all of that. And in terms of the kinds of disorders that I take care of as a neuro-ophthalmologist, mainly disorders that have to do with vision or vision loss. For example, if there's vision loss from an optic nerve problem, or sometimes there's a brain issue with vision loss. For example, a stroke with the vision problems, or a brain tumor, or inflammation like multiple sclerosis. That's actually a pretty common condition where patients lose vision. They initially come to see me first, and then they later get diagnosed with MS. And then I also take care of a lot of autoimmune conditions that affect the eyes. So for example, many people may not know that when people have thyroid problems, specifically thyroid autoimmune disease, whether it's Hashimoto's or hyperthyroidism Graves, people can have eye issues. They can have inflammation in the eye socket. They can get swelling of the lids. They can get double vision. They can get vision loss. So I take care of all of that. And on top of that, I also do migraine, as you mentioned. So a lot of my patients come in with vision problems related to migraine, but I also manage, the whole spectrum of migraine. So it's a grab bag of lots of different conditions that all come under the umbrella of neuro-ophthalmology.
And, it was interesting, but Dr. Banik, is I never really put it together with autoimmune. Autoimmune is a really big issue out there. And so many people I know have them. I didn't think that it didn't make the connection that there was actually, you have to address this, the neuro-ophthalmology part of this whole picture. So for those of you, I know there's a lot of you out there that are watching that probably have or know someone that has some kind of autoimmune disorder. This is really important for you to listen to. Now, is it inevitable, because we hear this all the time, that as we age, we can expect a decline in our brain health? It's going to get worse as we age, thereby, of course, affecting our vision as well. Is this inevitable, or is there anything that we can do to be protective?
Well, part of that's true, and part of that is not, we can intervene. So let me explain. So when I see people and they ask me, what's going to happen to me as I get older? What are the normal things that happen as people age with their vision. I tell them there are 3 things that happen to just about everyone at some point in their lives. So number 1, needing reading glasses. It happens to almost everyone. It's a condition called presbyopia, and that happens because the lens in our eye just isn't able to focus at different distances, for example, distance, intermediate, or up close. And so it loses its flexibility. It gets a little bit stiffer, and that's what causes the need for reading glasses. So that happens usually to most people in their 40s or 50s. Some people can get it a little bit later, but that's something that's inevitable. The second thing is cataract. Now, cataracts, a lot of people think, oh, it may be genetic because my parents had it and I'm worried that I'm going to get it. But the truth is, if you live long enough, you're going to get a cataract. And what happens is the lens inside the eye eventually begins to harden and opacify. So instead of being transparent and clear, it starts to look a little bit yellowish or brownish, and it decreases the amount of light getting through, and it causes blurry vision. So it happens to everyone. Some people it can happen, even children can get cataracts. There are certain types of pediatric cataracts, but most people get cataracts sometime in their 60s or 70s. But it doesn't necessarily mean just because you have a cataract doesn't mean that you have to get it taken out or anything. You don't have to have something done for it. It's just there. It's a part of aging. And it's problematic only if it degrades your vision. And then at that point, you can consider getting it taken out. The third thing that happens to everyone as we get older, and myself included, is our wrinkles. So we all get little fine creases around our eyes, maybe underneath the eyes. It's bound to happen. So these 3 things, pretty much inevitable, but they're not, they don't cause permanent vision loss or permanent blindness or anything like that. So, but then there are a host of other conditions where we can intervene. So, you were asking before, as we get older, does it really mean that our brain's going to decline, our vision's going to decline? Not necessarily. I know I have some patients who are in their 90s or even in their early hundreds who are centenarians, and they have amazing vision. So just because we get older doesn't necessarily mean that we will lose vision. There are things we can do to protect our vision, to fight off against some of those conditions like glaucoma or macular degeneration or diabetes and diabetic retinopathy that can affect vision as we get older. So there are lots of things you can do. It's not inevitable.
And we're going to talk about that because what I have learned from learning from you is that lifestyle does play a part in all of this. And we're going to get to that. So let's talk first, because a lot of people are having questions about technology. And by the way, thanks everyone for joining us. And again, we do answer questions here. So if you have a question, I see we have some already logged in. Please feel free to ask us questions and tell us where you're from. So let's talk about technology and how it's affecting us. So we live in a really wired world. We can't, there's nothing we can do about this. It's the way that the world has become, and we all love our devices. But there's a growing concern that our phones and our computers, they really, they may be bad for our brains and our eyes and so forth. Can you address this?
Yeah, so people are concerned about too much screen time, especially now during this pandemic. We're all glued to our screens. We're working from home, homeschooling, connecting socially, doing Zoom. So it's a lot of screen time. And even before the pandemic, the average US adult had about almost 11 hours of screen time a day, which is really mind-boggling that we spend so much time on screens. I'm really cautious of, anxious to see what the numbers are going to look like. Not cautious, but concerned a little bit because those numbers have just skyrocketed. Even kids were spending about 6 hours a day in front of a screen before COVID. So now, we'll see what the numbers look like. So, the concern is that when we're on screens for prolonged periods of time, there's a syndrome that can happen called digital eye strain. And you may have heard of it, or it's also called computer vision syndrome. And what it is it's basically a constellation of symptoms. And different people experience it different ways, but pretty much at some point, all of us have experienced this in some way or form. So the symptoms include dry eye, blurriness, trouble focusing, sometimes light sensitivity, headaches, even sometimes neck and shoulder pain can happen from digital eye strain. And it's basically related to looking at the computer, not blinking enough. So when we don't blink, our eyes dry out. Normally, we blink about 15 times a minute, but when we're looking at a screen, we probably only blink about 3 or 4 times a minute because we're just really concentrating on what we're looking at. So that causes the tears to evaporate, the eyes to get dry. The light coming from the screen is another issue. It's part of digital eye strain. So, our screens are backlit devices, and they emit a certain wavelength of light, which is called blue light. And probably many of your listeners have heard of this blue light. So I'm just going to break it down and explain what blue light is. So blue light, if you think about the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow, blue light is on one end of the spectrum. So there's ultraviolet, there's indigo, there's blue. And so blue light is between, if you want to get technical about it, it's a certain number of nanometers. It's 400 to 500 nanometers in length. And it's the shorter end of the spectrum. And these blue rays come from devices. They can come from any device, whether it's a computer, tablet, phone. Our TVs emit blue light. And even some of our light sources emit blue light. So people don't realize that, many of us have switched to energy-saving light bulbs like LEDs or CFL bulbs because they're good for the environment, but they emit a lot of blue light, more than other types of bulbs like incandescents or even obviously candles don't emit blue light. But so these artificial light sources from screens, from light bulbs, emit a lot of blue light. We also get blue light from the sun, which is beneficial blue light. And when the sun gives us blue light, it's actually linked to our circadian rhythm. So the sun rises in the morning and it starts to emit blue light, and it basically tells our brain, our eyes that tell our brains through the pineal gland that it's time to wake up. It's time to get ready, get started with the day. And blue light usually peaks around 10 a.m. to noon. That comes from the sun. That's healthy blue light. And then as the sun goes across the horizon and then it starts to set later in the day, there's less blue light that comes out from the sun. So it's telling our bodies, okay, now it's time to wind down. It's time to get ready for bed. So that's the natural cycle of blue light. But when we're on our screens all day long, we are getting this constant signal to keep our brains alert and to stay awake, and it actually suppresses melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. So it interferes with our sleep. So going back to your question about devices, yes, they can cause digital eye strain. They can cause issues with sleep. It can make it harder to fall asleep or to stay asleep. And then there is also this concern that this blue light may actually damage our eyes. Now, I do want to say that there is no proof that there is long-term damage to our retinas from blue light. Of course, there's theoretical potential damage because these blue rays are short wavelength, high energy rays. So yes, theoretically, maybe with cumulative damage, yes, we could have more issues in the future, but the research is not there yet. We don't know yet. So, that's still kind of an open-ended question. Can blue light really cause damage, long-term damage to our eyes? We don't know.
Would it not, it would make sense to me that would depend on the length of time that someone is using or exposed to the blue light, because if you have excess exposure, it would make complete sense that it could start to actually go in and damage the retina. Has there been any studies done that show there's a certain amount of time that we should not exceed being on our laptops and our phones and all of that screen time?
No, not that I know of. So there's no guideline, this amount of screen time is safe and this amount is not safe. We don't have those guidelines yet. So, it's kind of a hard study to do because so many of us are on screens all the time. It would be hard to get a control group. And then also you'd have to also follow people out over years to really know, what is the potential long-term effect of this. But I can tell you that
the control group would be a problem. The control group would definitely be a problem.
It would definitely be a problem. It's really hard to find people these days who are not on screens, all age groups, babies all the way to, seniors. So, so it's tough. It's tough to know. But I'll tell you something interesting. So two summers ago, in August of 2018, there was a study that was published that basically came out with all these headlines that blue light from our screens is going to kill our retinas. It's going to make us all go blind. And these were really alarming headlines that were released. And they came from this study where researchers took cells, they put them in a petri dish, and they gave them lots and lots of blue light. And what they found was that the cells died. So they said, oh, too much blue light exposure is going to kill your eye cells, and we're all going to go blind from this screen time that we have. But let me just give you the breakdown for this study. So the cells that those researchers took were not even eye cells. They were cervical cancer cells.
Wow.
And yeah, it's crazy. A lot of people don't even realize this. And so they took these cervical cancer cells and they used them because these cells grow very well in a petri dish. So they use these cells that are not supposed to be in the eye. They expose them to high levels of blue light and the cells died. Our natural eye cells, the cells in our retina, have natural protective mechanisms to fight against UV light and blue light. So those cervical cancer cells didn't have these mechanisms, and that's why they found their results. So it hasn't been done using retina cells yet, you know, in the same way. Again, the research just is not there yet. And I think one of the problems is culturing retina cells is not easy. And then, you know, it's also difficult to do in a human. You know, how do you measure whether people are losing their retinal cells? We have millions of retinal cells. And even if there's a small decline, it's very hard to measure that. So
I would imagine. And so what about the blue blocking glasses? Do they have some merit to them?
I get this question all the time.
So,
yeah, and there's so many manufacturers of these blue blocking glasses. So there is no study yet that shows that blue blocking glasses will protect your eyes from digital eye strain or potential damage to the retina. We don't have that data. What I will say though is that not all blue blockers are the same. So if you're going to choose to wear a blue blocker, mainly for comfort, so it'll cut that, you know, that backlit screen light that sometimes can cause light sun. Yes, it can probably do that. But if you're going to get blue blocking glasses, make sure you get them from a reputable manufacturer and ask the manufacturer what percentage of blue light does it really block. Because there was actually Consumer Reports looked at 3 of the top selling blue blocking glasses on the market. And they did this study back in 2016. So they actually checked, you know, they used a device to measure how much blue light does it actually block. Only one of the 3 actually blocked over 99% of the blue light. The other 2, one blocked less than 50% and the other blocked about 30%. So again, not all blue blockers do what they claim to do. And yes, you can ask your, you know, the manufacturer or an optician at an optical store. But a quick and simple thing you can do to know if your blue blockers really work is you just put them on and you look at a screen that's blue or that has some blue in it. And if you can still see blue, you know that that blue blocker is not blocking 100% of the blue light. So quick and simple, just try them on yourself and look at a blue screen, and that will tell you how much your blue blocker is really working for you.
Okay, that's interesting. And that's a really good little technique for people to try, because that is something everyone is curious about. You say that there's actually ways though that you can create this naturally, in a sense, that there's natural blue blocking foods. I've got to know what this is. What is this?
Yeah, so this is, I think, you know, you were mentioning earlier about, you know, the doctors that you have coming on your show talking about, you know, approaches to health that may be a little bit different. So very few, I can tell you, very few of my colleagues talk about this. Maybe some of them know about it, but very few of them really use this, you know, food as.
I've never heard it before.
Yeah, so this is something I think that really needs to be, you know, we need to raise awareness of this, because we have natural blue blockers inside our eyes. So nature has put these pigments in the back of our eyes to help absorb UV and blue light to help protect our retina. And these pigments, they have names, they're compounds, they're carotenoids basically, that are similar to vitamin A. They're like cousins of vitamin A. They're called lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. Now, if you take an eye health supplement, you probably have heard of these names, or you've seen these names on the label, but lutein and zeaxanthin are yellowish pigments that are actually in the retina. They absorb the blue light, and unfortunately our bodies can't make these pigments, so we have to get them through food or through supplements. And you can actually provide your body with these supplements using foods like green leafy vegetables, orange peppers, corn. Corn is a great source of lutein and zeaxanthin, and then also egg yolk. You know, that gorgeous kind of orangish yellow color in the egg yolk, that's because it has lutein and zeaxanthin in it. So definitely try to incorporate a lot of these foods in your diet to give your eyes the protection they need. Now, the third pigment I mentioned, which is the mesozeaxanthin, is not so readily found in foods. It's actually kind of hard to get from foods. Our body probably converts lutein into mesozeaxanthin, but in some people, it may be just best to supplement, because a lot of us just don't get enough of these pigments from our diet. So normally, it's said that it's estimated that we should get at least 6.5 milligrams of lutein in our diet daily. And most of us probably only get 1 or 2 milligrams at the most. Even people on the best, what you may think are, you know, the best, healthiest diets and are really rich in fruits and vegetables, their studies have shown that people on a Mediterranean diet, even they only get about 2 milligrams of lutein in their diet. So, it may be best to supplement. And when you look for a supplement, look at the label, look for those three: lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. I like to call them vitamins L, Z, and M. They're not officially vitamins, but that's the way I like to think of them.
Is there any supplement that you recommend that people go out and grab? People like kind of tactical information. Is there any that you love?
There are so many on the market. I actually did some research on this because I'm writing a book on macular degeneration. So for my book, I researched, their top 50 eye health supplements on the market. What I would say is each supplement is different in its formulation and in the dose. But if you look for those three pigments, and there's an easy way to get those pigments, there's an ingredient called Lutamax 2020, and it already has those three in the right ratio that's normally found in our diet. So again, there are many brands on the market. You could just get like Doctor's Best or Nature's Way, but look for that Lutamax 2020, or you can get Life Extension. And then there are gummy forms of the vitamins too. So it's great for kids because kids, they're probably not getting enough in their diet as it is, because most kids don't like to eat those vegetables anyway. So, so you can give your kid a gummy, and my daughter, she loves them. She just like pops them like candy. So it's easy for her to get her eye health vitamins in. But, some of the vitamins may be marketed as eye health, or some of them now are also marketed as blue light supplements. So you can look for that also. Either eye health or blue light supplements.
Speaking of kids and get an eye health and such, are you worried about children now because of the pandemic? People are now actually getting their education by Zoom and a lot of screen time. In addition to that, is their sole source of connection now with their buddies, which is really important to kids. So, what are you seeing? Do you think it's affecting overall eye health and brain health?
Yeah, it is. It's a big concern. Even before the pandemic, kids were spending a lot of time on screens, and there's actually guidelines on how much screen time kids should have. And again, this is pre-pandemic, but it was recommended that infants, 1 year and less, should absolutely have no screen time at all. And those between, let's say, 1 to 2 should only get let's say, grandma and grandpa time on FaceTime. That's the amount of screen time that they should get. And then beyond that, maybe 1 to 2 hours for kids less than 5, like between 2 to 5, and then 5 to 12, 2 hours a day. But again, all those numbers have just gone out the window now with the pandemic, with homeschooling and, Zoom and so forth, and social. Even our kids are on Zoom, meeting up with their friends. So it's unavoidable. What I would say is, it's a little bit more concerning for kids, because adult eyes can actually filter out blue light a little bit better than kids' eyes can, because our lens is able to filter it out in addition to those pigments. But kids' eyes don't have the lens also filtering out blue light. So I would strongly encourage parents to make sure that their kids get a supplement, first of all. Number 2, consider getting them blue blocking glasses, because yes, they do suffer from digital eye strain just like adults. That light that's coming in. Yes, get them a high quality blue blocker. And maybe even there's another thing I really like, which is a screen filter app. So you can actually download a screen filter app to your phone or your laptop or computer, and the screen filter app internally takes out the blue light. And there are 2 that I found that are really good. One is called Iris. So IRIS, just like iris, like the flower, or the iris in the eye. The other one is called Flux, F.LUX. And these apps are also timed to your time zone. So the app knows what time zone you're in, so it knows what the cycle of the sun is, so when the sun rises and when the sun sets. So it automatically can adjust the amount of blue light coming from your screen based on where you are, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So I would do all those 3 things for kids. And then the other thing we didn't talk about before when we're talking about digital eye strain is treating dry eye with lubrication. So, when our eyes start to get red or itchy or dry, they need moisture, because we're not blinking enough. So use some drops. You can use some preservative-free drops for yourself. Your children can use them too, and it will help moisturize the eyes and also help keep things in focus rather than things getting blurry. There's another quick tip I like to tell parents about, kids and screen time. And this is actually true for adults and kids. Use a rule called the 20-20 rule. And if you can remember it, 20/20 is supposed to be perfect vision. But what the 20/20 rule is every 20 minutes, set your timer and take a 20-second break. And all you need to do is just close your eyes. You know, you're blocking that blue light from getting to your eyes. You're lubricating when you close your eyes, and you maybe take some deep breaths, do a short meditation for 20 seconds, and then you can start working again. And that will really help your endurance when you're on a screen. It's done wonders for me, for my daughter. It really works really, really well. So that 20/20 rule.
Tips. So let's go. I just want to go over these tips one more time because they are gold. So you're saying do drops for lubrication. So Stacy, if you could write these down. So drops for lubrication. You're saying a supplement, and they're even called now blue blocking supplement.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Blue light, eye health supplements. Yeah, there's so many brands on the market.
Okay, so many brands on the market. And then there's this app. The app is Iris or Flux, and that will track that rhythm. And then the 20/20 rule, which is where every 20 minutes, shut your eyes for 20 seconds.
Simple. It works.
Yeah, I love this routine. So this is a great routine for everyone. This is an antidote to all of this technology eye strain that we're getting. And again, I haven't heard this before. This is amazing. So, we're hitting on what's going on with kids. And I just want to add one more thing of these virtual reality games. I am so curious to know. Now, the first time I was introduced to these it was 2 years ago, and it was on a boardwalk actually. And I was watching all of this and I thought, is this good for kids? So what's your take, Doc?
I'll go back to what I said before. The research hasn't been done yet. So we don't know the long-term side effects. So what happens with virtual reality is, we put these devices on, and it gives us, an environment that we're in, that we're interacting with, but our senses get disconnected. So, our eyes work in concert with our hearing, with our balance center, which is in the brain, the cerebellum, and with our peripheral nerves. So when we're walking, for example, all these senses, all these nerves are working together to help us maintain balance and to take in all this information from the environment. But when we put on those virtual reality glasses, really the only input we're getting is visual. Right? Maybe we're getting some audio, maybe there's some audio component too, but we're not getting all those other senses normally. We have a sense that, we may be on a cliff or we may be falling, but we're not really, our bodies are not doing that. So there's this disconnect, and it can really cause, there's a risk for falls. There is a risk for dizziness, sometimes even headaches or even nausea or vomiting. So, I know kids love these games, and, it's great entertainment for many people, even adults. A lot of adults love virtual reality games, but I would just say, everything in moderation. So if you're going to do it, definitely take breaks, take it off, take maybe a 5 or 10 minute break, do something else, and then go back to it again. So, don't be on it for hours and hours and hours at a time. I know it can be a little addictive at times, but, just for your brain health, your eye health, it's not good to get too much stimulation that way when it's not balanced out with everything else. Now, on the flip side, so virtual reality can be used for entertainment, which is what most of us know it as, but it's actually used therapeutically also. So it's actually used in settings like, for example, if people have had strokes and they're going through rehab, sometimes they use virtual reality to help them relearn things, like relearn how to navigate in their environment. So studies have shown that it's really very beneficial for adults and kids with strokes. Also, it helps people get rid of phobias. So it's been used for psychiatric purposes. So it's not all bad, but everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation. And I love all of that. That's so helpful, Dr. Banik. So before we get to migraines, I just want to answer some of these questions. So what causes dark circles under the eyes besides lack of sleep? Is this anything that you can help us with? Do you know anything about that, Dr. Banik?
So the reason why most people get dark circles is because we have these tiny little capillaries under our skin, and they tend to break. Especially if we rub our eyes a lot, they can break. And then they release blood products into the tissues here. And those blood products don't get readily absorbed. So, if you do have dark circles, yes, absolutely try to get more sleep, but also try not to rub your eyes, maybe use some cool compresses. There are all kinds of also skin lightening creams that can be used. I haven't really found anything like really
Extraordinary.
consistently beneficial. So,
Yeah.
but I would just do, the home remedies, like, I know people put tea bags on their eyes or cucumbers. Anything cool is probably better than something hot to get rid of those dark circles.
And I have to say, guys, I use these eye patches and I put them in the refrigerator. And then I put these little, who makes them? Peter Thomas. Peter Thomas, and they're little collagen gel patches, and I put them in the refrigerator. And then before I leave in the morning, I put them on, and they're great. They really help. They really help kind of lessen the swelling underneath the eyes. There's also those. What is that called? It's the rose. It's a stone, and you can put the stone underneath your eye. Do you know about this?
I haven't heard about this.
Like a little rose stone, and if anyone knows what it is, write in. I can't think of the name, but I keep this in the refrigerator, and all I do is it comes on a little stick, and you just rub this little stone underneath the eye in the morning, and it's cold. And I think with Dr. Banik, to her point, the fact that it's cold really does help. Rose quartz, thank you. Rose quartz, you can get these anywhere. You can pick it up at Kohl's, at Walmart, Target, anywhere. They have.
Look for that. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you'll love that. Another one we've got, can we have the 3 vitamins we need for eye health repeated? Okay,
Sure.
so Stacey, write these down when she says them, when Dr. Banik says them this time. What are the 3 ingredients?
So lutein, which is vitamin L, so it's Lutein, and then zeaxanthin, which is Zeaxanthin. It's a tongue twister. It's hard to spell too. And then mesozeaxanthin, which is Meso, and then zeaxanthin. So again, L, Z, and M. Those are those 3.
L, Z, and M. And again, so someone wrote in, yes, it's Peter Thomas Ross. Yes, those are the eye patches that I use. Excellent. I'm glad that you know that. Can you rename the screen filter apps? It's Iris, and what was the other one? Flux?
Flux. So it's spelled F.lux, but it's pronounced flux.
F.lux for drops for lubrication. We've got that supplement. So 20/20 rule, all good stuff. And then there's a couple of others that we will try to get to, guys. I want to move on to migraines. I want to talk about migraines because this is a huge problem. It affects 33 million Americans. That's a big deal. And you know personally how devastating migraines are. And I have seen people absolutely incapacitated. You have your own story. Tell us what happened with you.
Yeah, so I started getting migraines when I was in med school, but I would get them very infrequently, maybe like once every 2 years or so. And then as my life went on, stressors built up, I started to get them more and more often. And then there was a period in my life when things were really, really stressful. And basically I had a migraine every single day. Oh. Now, if you've ever had a migraine, you know that is not fun. It's not your regular headache. It's very debilitating. People are light sensitive, sound sensitive. You just want to crawl under the covers and go to sleep and not come out. So I felt like that every single day. And the ironic thing is that I was suffering from migraine myself, but I was taking care of patients with migraine. And about 50% of my patients have migraines. So I was trying to help them when I myself was not feeling well. And so I live in New York City, and I basically went to all the top headache specialists I could find in New York City, all of my colleagues basically. And what they did was one after another, they just wrote me for script after script after script. Like, oh, try this new drug, or try this. This is the latest thing on the market. And I tried them all and nothing worked, nothing. And they all just gave me side effects. I was feeling like a zombie. I couldn't function. I couldn't, think properly. So finally I took matters into my own hands. And this is before I was introduced to integrative medicine or functional medicine. I never even heard of these fields before. But this is my introduction because I was looking for a solution for myself. And what I realized was that there is a lot of research out there on natural ways to help improve migraine. So supplements you can take like magnesium, riboflavin. There are studies that show that if you take minerals and supplements and vitamins, that you can reduce your frequency and severity of migraine. So I started to do some of these things, but the main thing that not one of my doctors ever asked me about was my lifestyle and my diet. And these 2 things were key. And until I did my own soul searching and until I was my own detective and figured it out that I was having way too much caffeine. I was probably having like 8 to 12 caffeinated drinks a day. I wasn't sleeping properly. I was sleeping maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. I had a tremendous amount of stress. And I was living off of, and I kid you not, I was living off of junk food. So pizza, ice cream, and diet soda. Those were my breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay? And not one of my doctors ever asked me, what are you eating? What are you drinking? How much do you, none of those lifestyle factors that seem so basic. I myself, even, having gone through medical school and training and fellowship, no one ever told me the importance of these factors when thinking about migraines. So that's how I started to heal myself, is addressing all of these issues. And my gut microbiome was completely messed up. I'd been on multiple rounds of antibiotics because of sinusitis. And so, that was another issue that no one had asked me about. And I had all these other GI symptoms along with my migraine. So once I started to fix my diet and fix all of those lifestyle issues, I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress, but only after that did I finally start to feel better. And that's really what I try to teach my patients now is, if you want to solve your migraine, especially for chronic migraine, you really have to address these things that are in your control. It's not a magic pill. You have the control.
And it's so funny what you said, because here's, again, this is a first, I believe. I have not heard anyone link migraines to gut health. And you just did. And
it's so important. Kellyann, I can't tell you how important it is.
I can't believe that even escaped me, because it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense, especially how we know how the gut affects the brain. So if the gut affects the brain, of course it affects eye health. It makes so much sense. I'm so glad that you're bringing this to the forefront. And one of the ways that you address all this, and if you know anyone out there, guys, that have had any issues with migraines, tune in now. We've only got Dr. Banik for another 15 minutes. We'll answer questions as best as we can as we're going along. Nourish, balance, calm. That is your 3-pronged system to combat migraines. Please start with Nourish. Tell me about, again, this connection between gut and migraines and how we can nourish ourselves.
Yeah, so the connection, it's known that the vagus nerve connects the gut to the brain. And there are so many neurotransmitters that are released by the gut that affect the brain. Yet gut health is mostly ignored by most headache specialists, migraine specialists, and so forth. So in terms of Nourish, what I would say is, first, there are also many food triggers that lead to migraines, because there's release of chemicals, histamines, and so forth that can be associated with migraine. So fix your gut first. I would recommend starting with an elimination diet for at least 3 weeks, and try to figure out what foods you may be sensitive to, and also then healing your gut. So maybe, including probiotics, prebiotics in your diet, and then also thinking about what foods you're eating that you may think are okay, but they may not be okay. So there are certain foods that are rich in something called tyramine, and tyramine is a byproduct of fermentation. So basically, certain fermented foods like certain wines, even beers, aged cheeses, and some meats as well, or processed meats have tyramine, and that may be linked to migraine. So think about what you're eating and try to eliminate things that are processed, that are fermented, at least for 3 weeks. And try to reset your gut. So that's the Nourish part. And I'm just simplifying because there's a lot more to it. But I would also say included in the Nourish is to hydrate. You have to hydrate your body, because dehydration is a major trigger for migraine. I can't tell you, especially in the summertime, how many patients come to me with new onset migraine or, just intractable migraine because they're dehydrated. They're just not feeding their bodies enough water or fluids. And then the second part was balance. And what I mean by balance is address the issues in your lifestyle. So if you know you're not getting restful sleep, you need to fix that. Okay. Your brain needs that sleep for restoration. So you need to fix that. So balance that way, balance your other lifestyle habits, reduce your caffeine. And then in terms of the calm part of it, stress is the elephant in the room when it comes to migraine. And most doctors don't even ask people, how are your stress levels? What are you doing we all have stress, but we all have different ways of managing that stress. And, it's really important to figure out what works best for you. And this is not something your doctor can tell you, what stress management modality is going to be best for you. It's something you have to figure out on your own. So for some people, it could be exercising. For other people, it could be doing meditation or yoga or some other physical activity like Tai Chi. For other people, it could be picking up a hobby, which is their stress relief. Maybe doing some arts and crafts or learning a new language that will get your mind off of your stress and improve things. And then finally, therapy. Some people, they need to go to therapy to help with their stress. Maybe they need someone to talk to, or perhaps even, if they're stressed and anxious, perhaps they need to be on a medication to help balance and calm that aspect of their migraine trigger, which again is just, it's so, if I had to choose one thing that's almost, most common across all my migraine patients, I would say it's stress.
Universal. And if you were to ask me, out of all the patients I've seen over the years, my God, over 20 years, what's the number one, what's the primary source, the overhanging fruit? I would say would be stress. And, you'd think for me, it would be food. I would say food. It's not, it's stress. Stress is the most important thing. And guys, it can be really easy to find something that chills you out. For me, it's Epsom salts in a bathtub. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Sometimes just sitting with an app on, with something calming, the Calm app or something that really kind of centers you. But I think one of the most important things that you can do for your life moving forward, even beyond eye and brain health, is finding a way to get your body to take it down a couple notches. Absolutely primary, guys. So nourish, balance, calm. So just in a few words, so Stacy can jot this down for everyone. So give me a few words on nourish, a few words on balance, a few words on calm. So nourish.
For nourish, I would say consider an elimination diet and heal your gut. Okay, so for balance, I would say address all of those lifestyle issues that could be lowering your threshold for migraine, like sleep habits, eating habits. So I didn't mention this earlier, but eating regularly is very, very important. If you suffer from migraines, your body craves regularity. So regularity in all of your routines, waking up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every day, eating on a regular schedule. Do not skip meals, because that will definitely trigger migraines. So balancing that way, just put yourself on a schedule, everything on a schedule. And then finally, the calm part is stress management techniques, and find what works best for you.
Beautiful. And you have some tips for dealing with light sensitivity in migraines. And I know that's a really big deal. What do you have there?
Yeah. Well, let me just explain why people are light sensitive when they get migraine. So the nerve that's responsible for migraine is a nerve called the trigeminal nerve. And this nerve has many branches. It goes throughout the whole brain. It's actually in the covering of the brain. It goes to the eye socket. It goes to the face. It goes to the cornea, which is on the surface of the eye. And so those little fibers, those trigeminal fibers, are sensitive to light. So when bright light hits them, or certain wavelengths of light hits the trigeminal nerve, and if you're prone to migraine, or if you're having a migraine, that will trigger the release of pain substances. And then that triggers the migraine. So the best way to reduce light sensitivity is to use specially tinted glasses called FL41 glasses. So it's FL-41, and it's a tint that's almost like a rose color. So you can call them your rose color glasses, and it's like a light pink lavender color. And basically it's a tint that's been clinically proven to reduce light sensitivity in migraine. So there's actually research behind it. It helps with light sensitivity from other causes also, but there are a couple of different manufacturers of FL41 glasses. There are different styles. I like the wraparound style, because especially if you're outdoors, if it's very, very sunny and you know that your migraines are going to get triggered, you have a wide frame glasses, but then they also have panels on the side that also have that tint. So it prevents that stray light from getting in from the side. So try to find those FL41 glasses. A manufacturer that I really like is called Axon Optics. So AXON, like axon, like a nerve axon, Optics. And they're based out of Utah. So I usually, they have a great website. They have great customer support. You can, look into that. They have lots of different styles. The other thing that I love for light sensitivity goes back to that screen filter app that we were talking about. So The Iris app is actually very versatile. So not only can it block blue light, but there are different modes on the app. So you can program it, you can choose different settings, and there are 27 different combinations on the Iris app. And there's one that is actually more for migraines and headaches. So it will automatically block out those wavelengths that trigger migraines in addition to the blue light. So I love that app. I mean, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be one of my favorites too. So that is really good information again on dealing with light sensitivity that comes from this trigeminal nerve. Really good. FL41 glasses, great. Water, really important. Also, you know, that seems like such an oversimplification for the whole idea of getting just back to migraines in general, that water dehydration can cause it. But I have found that so many times. And sometimes we even have to hook them up with some fluids, and then right away their migraine goes away.
Yeah, it's like magic sometimes. I think I tell my patients, you know, think of your body as a plant. You know, if you don't water it, you're going to wilt, and you're going to be more susceptible to, you know, just going brown and just not being healthy. So keep your body hydrated for many reasons, not just for migraines, but it's probably one of the simplest, most effective techniques we have for good health.
I agree. I completely agree. Now let's get to allergies and headaches for a minute. We're running out of time, guys. We've got about 9 more minutes with Dr. Banik. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask us. So it's bad enough when allergies cause sniffles, itchy eyes, all of that. We know that. But people also get brutal headaches. Why is this? What is the connection between the two?
Yeah, no, great question. So the reason why allergies trigger headaches is because, you know, that trigeminal nerve I was talking about that can be, that causes migraine, it's the same nerve that goes to all of our sinuses. So it gives us innervation to our sinuses. So we have sinuses here, these are our frontal sinuses. We have sinuses here, these are the maxillary sinuses. And then we have 2 other sinuses, basically like right behind our nose and our eye socket, which are the ethmoid and the sphenoid sinuses. So we have 4 sinuses in our skull. And the trigeminal nerve basically goes to the coverings of all of those sinuses. So when you have inflammation in your sinuses from allergies or from something else, whether it's bacterial or viral, the tissues swell up and they push on these nerves. And that's what causes the pain, and that's what causes the headache. So technically, though, there is no such thing as a sinus headache. You know, a lot of headaches will say it's not a real entity in the medical world. But the truth is that, yes, people can get sinus headaches whenever there's inflammation going on.
And so most doctors treat allergies and headaches with antihistamines. What's the downside of this?
So there are many side effects of antihistamines. You know, we all know they can make you drowsy, they can make you not function properly, but they also can dry out your body. Some of them also have anticholinergic properties. They can cause dry eye, dry mouth. They can cause changes in blood pressure. And also a lot of the antihistamines, just also the over-the-counter antihistamines, also have decongestants with them. So they're usually combined. The 2 ingredients are combined. So when you combine the antihistamine with a decongestant, your blood vessels will change. They will constrict. And it can definitely cause changes in blood pressure. It can actually trigger headaches in some people when the blood vessels constrict too much. And I particularly don't like over-the-counter antihistamines for this reason, because they decrease the blood flow to your optic nerves and your brain. And I've actually heard of some of my patients, and I don't want to scare anyone with this, but I can think of one patient in particular who ended up with an eye stroke, an optic nerve stroke, because he was just taking antihistamines with decongestants, like, you know, really well over the amount that he should have been taking for 2 weeks. And that caused him lack of oxygen to his optic nerves with permanent loss of vision. So if you're going to do it in moderation. Definitely, you know, if you're going to do it for longer, talk to your doctor about it. But there are many side effects that don't get talked about with these. You know, people think, oh, they're over the counter, they're benign, I can use them.
Exactly.
It's not a problem, but that's not the case.
It's not the case at all. But we talked about how eating the right foods and eliminating the wrong foods is critical in treating migraines. Where does this stand in treating allergies? Is it the same?
I think it's very much the same. You know, a lot of foods will trigger histamine release, and then that will in turn cause worsening of allergy symptoms or even other allergic type things like asthma or eczema. the body's immune system gets primed from what we eat. So, there is this concept of leaky gut and increased intestinal permeability. If you tie that all together, if we're eating foods that are pro-inflammatory, all of these inflammatory chemicals get released into the body. It can worsen allergies. It can worsen a lot of the autoimmune conditions we talked about. So, really look at your diet and think about what you can do to reduce your level of pro-inflammatory foods. Try to get more towards anti-inflammatory foods, and spices are part of that as well.
I agree. And it's so funny, no matter. Excuse me for interrupting, but I have to say it's so interesting to me that this whole idea of getting inflammation out of the body, it affects everything. It affects everything. Now we're talking about, eye health, brain health. So I really want to employ everyone to just really understand what is an anti-inflammatory lifestyle and what steps do you have to take to lead towards that lifestyle. And I like how you put the term lifestyle in there, because it's not just anti-inflammatory foods, it's everything. And stress, of course, mention again, that's all part of an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. I have a question here. What are the best supplements to reduce migraine episodes? Is there any supplements that you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned before magnesium. So magnesium is important for many reactions in the body, but particularly for migraine. Magnesium helps to relax nerves and muscles. So basically it reduces tension. It helps to open up some of those blood vessels that can be constricted in migraine. Now the key is there are different types of magnesium, many different types of magnesiums on the market. I actually did a social media post about this a few months ago, but if you're going to look for a magnesium supplement for migraine, get a chelated form. So that would be either glycinate or threonate or L-threonate, rather than a salt form. So there are salt forms and chelated forms. Salt forms are like oxide, citrate, malate. Those are things you can usually buy, just at your local CVS or Duane Reade, but try to look for a chelated form if you're looking for migraine, because those chelated forms, they're joined with an amino acid. They get into the brain better. They cross that blood-brain barrier. They actually get to where you want them to be. The second thing I had mentioned before is the B vitamins, so specifically riboflavin, which is B2, in high doses. So most supplements will have like a small amount of riboflavin, maybe 4 milligrams or 10 milligrams at most, but the amount that actually has been proven for migraine is 400 milligrams. Now it may seem like a crazy amount, but I can tell you it really works. So, if you're suffering from migraines, incorporate those 2 supplements into your diet and do it for 3 months, and then try to wean yourself off. So it's not something you would do indefinitely. It's for a short period of time.
Okay, that's amazing. And so someone is asking, to reduce eye burning and irritation using the computer, which eyeglasses are the best? I know you kind of glazed over this. What is your favorite brand of eyeglasses to reduce irritation while using the computer?
Yeah, I think going back to dry eye, I think dry eye is probably why there's irritation and burning, like a burning sensation. That's because the eyes are dry. So try the drops first. If drops are not effective, go see your local eye doctor, whether it's your optometrist or your ophthalmologist, and ask them for computer glasses. Now, computer glasses are different than just reading glasses or your progressive glasses. Computer glasses actually are a form of progressive where the top part of the glass is for intermediate distance. So let's say 14 to 18 inches, depending on how far you sit from the computer. And then the bottom part is for reading. So let's say you're looking back and forth between the computer screen and something you're reading or your phone in your hand, you can get that progressive, that's called a computer glass. There's no specific brand that I recommend, but just ask your eye doctor for some computer glasses.
Okay, and I'm taking one last question here as we're down to the last 2 minutes. How do you prevent ocular migraines? Does it affect your brain?
So I wish we had another 15 minutes to talk about this, but we don't. So ocular migraine is actually a misnomer. It's actually called migraine with aura. So I'm assuming that, the person's asking about zigzag flashing lights, which is the aura of migraine. And so that is, it's a change that happens in the brain, usually because the blood vessels initially constrict and then they dilate. So to prevent that, you want to hydrate. You want to hydrate. You want to limit your caffeine. So not too much caffeine. I would try to limit it to 1 to 2 cups a day. And again, stress is a big factor. And if you are light sensitive, I know a lot of people get these types of visual aura and migraine when there's bright light coming in, like bright sunlight, or if there are fluorescent lights coming at them, they tend to have that as a trigger. So limit your light, and or maybe even get those FL41 glasses I was talking about.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that need those glasses, and that's a really great tip. Is there anything else in closing that you want everyone to know overall, just about health? You know, perhaps the screen time, while people, you know, don't have access to as much as we used to in terms of going out, so we're home, we're Zooming more. Is there anything that you want everyone to know?
Yeah, so I sort of touched a little bit about this before, but the best way to protect your eyes is to eat a healthy, balanced diet. And the diet that, or the kind of the foundation of the diet that I tell people is to have lots of different colored fruits and vegetables. And that will give your eyes not only those 3 pigments that I was talking about, but also all the other antioxidants that our eyes need to stay healthy to fight against cataracts, glaucoma, and macular degeneration. So what I tell people is have a diet that is plant rich. So it's not plant-based, but plant rich, and try to have at least 5 cups of different colored fruits and vegetables every day, and rotate through your fruits and vegetables. So, you know, in the course of a week, you know, most of us eat 21 meals a week. Have a different color with every meal. So you're going to get all of those great nutrients, the antioxidants, plus the phytonutrients. So if I can leave people with that, that will help them protect their eyes for a lifetime. Just have that plant-rich diet.
Well, I have to say, whatever you're doing must be working. You've got a lot of great energy there, and we've really appreciated your contribution tonight. Dr. Rani Banik, please tell everyone how they can get more of you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kellyann. I really enjoyed being here. I love the questions, you know, great topics. So I'm pretty active on social media, Instagram mainly. So it's Dr.Rani Banik. But I also am on Facebook. I have 2 Facebook groups. One is called Envision Health. That's EN Vision Health. And one is called Eye on Migraine. So you can join either of those. And I share a lot of great tips about nutrition and eye health and migraine. So hopefully I see you there, and please follow me.
Yeah, I love her Instagram, guys. You know, I love it. I love.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. Thank you.
Her Instagram gives really great content. Please follow her on her Instagram. So, Dr. Banik, again, thank you so much for your contribution. We have loved having you on Doctor's Night Out. I'm sure we'll be seeing much more of you. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. And I will see you again on Monday evenings. We have our panel. Thursday nights, our deep dive. And the rest of the days, you will find us on Instagram Live at noon. So until then, we're signing out with all the peace, all the love. Until next time. Mwah. Bye-bye.